Hello and welcome to the Raising Resilience community. I am very happy that you're here. So glad that you have found us. My name is Jess Sherman. I am the chief cheerleader here in the Raising Resilience community. I am also the author of Raising Resilience, and I am also the moderator of this group. I started this group a few years back, shortly before the publication of my book, which is called Raising Resilience, to be a forum to bring parents together. Parents who want to talk about the concepts in the book, parents who are trying the best that they can to raise physically and mentally resilient kids, to talk about their struggles, to talk about their challenges, to talk about their successes, and to come together and support each other. So I'm so glad that you're here, whether you've read the book or not. Please read the pinned post in the discussion, because that is going to give you a little bit more of an idea of how this group works and how you can contribute and how you can make the best use of your time here. Along with being an author and a nutritionist, I am also the mother of 3. And I know that as parents, we have to be really careful to make the best use of our time and our energy and not stretch our resources too thin. So what I've done here is I've created a few units to walk you through some of the core foundational concepts, the ideas that we talk about in this group, so that you can start to engage more quickly in the conversation and really kind of know what we're talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about in this unit is this concept of resilience. What do I mean when I say we want to raise resilience? What's that all about? Well, resilience is essentially our ability to handle and tolerate stress. The more resilient we are, the more resilient our kids are, the more we can bring ourselves back into a state of balance and keep moving forward when we're thrown out by a stress or an accumulation of stress. Once I learned to understand kids through this lens of stress and resilience, it made all the difference in terms of how I could understand them, how I could address them with compassion, and how I could help them. So what does resilience look like? Well, a kid with strong resilience, they are adaptable and they can learn from their experience. They can learn from their mistakes. They're okay with the unexpected and they can do what is expected of them. They can learn and they can focus and they can grow. They can understand and manage their feelings and their emotions. But there's also a real physical dimension to resilience. A resilient kid doesn't get sick as often, or when they do get sick, they rebound really quickly. Their symptoms are fewer. They have a strong immune system. They have steady energy, things like that. Reduced resilience also has a lot of different faces. Reduced resilience shows up as depression, anxiety, fear, anger, frustration, rage, aggression, poor focus, unstable moods, unstable energy. These kids are really struggling to bring themselves back to balance when they're thrown out of whack by stress. And just as with strong resilience, reduced resilience also has a physical dimension. These kids get sick a lot. These kids progress into secondary infections and can't really kick a virus out of their body. These kids tend to have a lot of allergies, things like that, skin flares. You're going to understand more about why there's such a connection between the mental, emotional, behavioral things and the physical things as we move through these units and as you engage in the community. And let me also be clear, if your child fits that category of child that I'm describing as having reduced resilience, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just as capable and strong and able as the kid next to them who might have strong resilience. What we have to work with here is improving their resilience, because the stronger we can get that resilience, the stronger their health will be, and then the happier they will be, the more capable they will feel, the more success they will have, and the more they can grow and the better they can thrive. So, how do we support the resilience? Well, to support their resilience, we have to understand what causes reduced resilience so that we can steps to reverse engineer that. So what causes reduced resilience? Usually a combination of 2 things. Stress load is too high and stress tolerance is too low. So how can we help them? We can help them by identifying and reducing their stressors and improving their stress tolerance. And this is a process that I call raising resilience. Now let me just take a quick detour here and talk about diagnoses, because some people will say to me, yeah, sure, Jess, that sounds great, but my kid has a diagnosis. They're autistic, or they have ADHD, or they have oppositional defiance disorder. That's fine, regardless of diagnosis. What we have to work with as parents is improving their resilience. The diagnoses typically come when this imbalance, this too much stress and reduced stress tolerance, has been out of balance in such an extreme way that it fits the criteria of a diagnosis. It also can give us some insight into what is adding to their stress load and why their stress tolerance might be unusually low. We can look to the research when we have a diagnosis to see what is typically going on in the body to keep that imbalance imbalanced. What is adding to their stress load and what is undermining their stress tolerance? So it can help us in that way. But what I want to be clear about is that this same process, reducing the stressors and improving the stress tolerance, is the same no matter what kind of diagnosis or what kind of box your child has been put into. If they are showing symptoms of reduced resilience, like I just talked about, the way we can help them is by employing this system of raising resilience. And that's what we talk about in this group. Now, since the publication of my book, I've been speaking about it and teaching from it and helping families with it. I've noticed two things. I've noticed that there is a lot of talk about stress and about kids and about how our kids are under more stress now than they ever have been before, and that could be contributing to some of the health issues that we're seeing in our kids. But I noticed that there are two pieces of this conversation missing. The first is that when we talk about stress and we talk about the stress load that our kids are under now, we talk about reducing those stressors, there's an entire category of stressor that is being missed, and I call that biological stress. That is the understanding of what is going on in the body that is adding to our child's stress load. There's a lot of talk about social stressors and environmental stressors, which are really important too, and we do talk about in this group, but this biological piece is missing. We're going to talk a lot about that in this group. The other part that I find is missing from the conversation around stress and health for kids is this idea of stress tolerance. Understanding the mechanisms, the wonderful mechanisms that we have built into us to manage stress, understanding how those work, and then taking steps to fortify them, make them stronger. I think right now our kids are in what I call a perfect storm. Their stress load has never before been so high, and their stress tolerance has never before been so low. But when we talk about fixing that, we have to understand the biological stressors and how they impact the stress load, and we have to understand the stress tolerance and how we can fortify it, how we can build it. So I think for some of you, being part of this group is going to really fill in some pieces of the puzzle that might have been missing before. Because you're going to understand all of this as you engage in this group, and over time, you're going to understand more strategies to help support this process of raising resilience. So for now, I just want you to understand what I mean when I talk about resilience and raising resilience, because you'll hear me talk about it in the group a lot. I'm talking about a two-pronged approach: identify and reduce stressors, including biological stress, and understand and improve stress tolerance. Next, I want to talk about why food matters. I am a nutritionist. My tool primarily is food. Food matters a great deal to this picture, and I'm going to talk about how and why in the next unit.